Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Anyone out there? Awesome. Hope you have some water, whatever your beverage, a little snack to get you through. And we're going to get started. Thank you, Renee.
Yeah.
So, guidelines for our time together. I like to call this a waterfall. I used to call this, just to kind of let it pour out. So, to kind of get to know your voices and your faces. I'll read the category in black, and I'm going to ask a different person to unmute themselves and read a different letter. So, for example, let's say I say show be present, Angela can read A, and then Gina can read B, and so on and so forth. So can someone please start it off by reading A under show up and be present?
I can.
Go ahead.
Okay, so guidelines for our time together: show up, be present. A, notice yourself, what you are thinking and feeling. B, pay deep attention to what is happening within you and around you. C, extend honor and respect by being visible. D, empower and inspire others by role modeling.
Thank you so much, Gina. Somebody else, please read the section underneath. Pay attention to what is heart and meaning.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Pay attention to what has heart and meaning. A, listen from a heart with an appreciation for one another. B, speak one at a time, honor and value who is speaking. C, honor and use another's pronouns. D, please refrain from giving each other feedback unless it's requested. If you ask for permission, or I'm sorry, if it's requested, if you ask permission or is explicitly part of the process. E, pay attention to your attention. Notice what you're thinking when your mind wanders and what you do to bring yourself back.
Thank you so much, Kelvin. May someone else please read the section for tell your truth without blame or judgment?
I could read that.
Thank you.
A, speak from the heart. B, ask for clarification when needed. C, ask for what you need or want. D, choosing silence at any time is fine. And E, deal with what's so as it happens. When something happens that impacts the whole, bring it forward to the group. F, keep yourself safe, whatever that means for you. And G, take breaks as needed.
Can someone please read the last section? Be open and unattached to outcomes.
I can read that.
Thank you, Jeff. And read the whole thing all the way through.
Be open and unattached to outcomes. Trust the process. 8, trust the process. B, if emotions are activated, please allow each person to have their experience. If tears come, let the person have them. Please don't attempt to calm, just listen. Additionally, we request that you make commitment to confidentiality. Whatever is said in the room stays in the room. Show of hands. Please. honor. Sorry.
Give me 1 second, Jeff. Everyone can show their hands. Thank you. Adrian as well. Nigeli, thank you. Okay, good to go. Keep going.
Please honor one another and the process by keeping time agreements, especially start, end, and breaks.
Thank you so much, Jeff, and all of you who have spoken and everyone else who's actively listening. So a few friendly reminders in terms of like this digital space that is CAPS, right? Through Zoom. One, this is our main classroom, and then the breakout rooms are extension to that. And so I just want to remind everyone here that as we're kind of growing this cohort, we're getting to know each other, and it's really important for us to share the air, right? So either verbally and also in the chat as well. And so as long as we're engaging and making connections with content is really important, but also getting to know and allowing other people to either step up or step back. And so the reason why I'm so focusing on active listening is that the only reason I'm able to speak right now is because all of you are choosing to be active listeners and vice versa. All right, so we're going to keep this October party going. So we're going to start today with a role of advocacy. So if you can go into the student portal, everything is there under the syllabus. And if you go into for today's role of advocacy, and we'll start off with here, and then we're going to go into psych rehab with Renee afterwards, which is her bread and butter. And it's going to be a good one to end the night. Okay. We are going to get into a couple activities as well, and I'm going to talk about this. But the idea here is for us to start talking about specifically as peer support specialists, right? Keep that in mind. I know many of you are working in different fields and different capacities, but when it comes to our work as peer support specialists, how do we focus on advocacy, right? And what that may look like. And we're going to get into some scenarios. Yeah. So in terms of today, our objectives, one is to really look at the distinction or the difference between advocacy, especially in a professional setting, versus activism that is more personal to us and our own topics, looking at any ethical aspects that can be involved within advocacy, not only organizationally, but also personally, right? Our own personal ethics and values. And then lastly, also demonstrate effective communication skills. And this is when, especially when we're in the breakout room activities, working together, working in teams, and looking at how you can troubleshoot or find plausible solutions to what a member or a consumer, a peer may need and ask of you as well, or maybe even someone else in your own life. So this is the goal. These are the goals for today. All right. So this next part here in the chat, when you think of the word advocate or advocacy, what comes to mind? When you think of the word advocate, what comes to mind? And we're just going to make this waterfall go, right? What comes to mind? And then go ahead, Carla, you can unmute yourself, and then Jody.
For me, advocacy means when you're speaking up for a belief, a person, or just representing something, right?
Yep. Thank you for that. And then Jody.
For me, advocacy, I not only been an advocate for someone else, but also for myself. So standing up for what you believe, but as well as what they might need.
For yourself. And we're talking about lived experiences, not just our own, but those within our family as well. Thank you for that,
Yes.
Jody. Dovana, and then Angie and Andra. I'm going to continue.
Thank you for acknowledging me. I believe advocacy in its ideal situation is acting in the best interest of an individual or an organization or for a cause. It's selfless.
Thank you for that. That selfless part. Angie.
I believe that advocacy is about influencing change.
Cool.
So whether that be changing laws or improving systems or shifting public attitudes.
Or a micro level. Thank you for that, Angie. And Andra, wrap it up. What do you got?
Everybody said basically the thing I was thinking: supportive and setting examples to show them the way to, maybe if somebody's having issues, just to be there for them.
Yeah. Right.
That's what or like, I don't know. I'm not very good at explaining myself.
No, you're good.
Just basically a support system for somebody who needs that.
And thank you. Thank you for wrapping up that way, a support system. And so the beauty here, remember, asking, not just telling, right, but also asking all of you what it means to you, because that's how you are going to approach it, right? And so you already bring in your own experiences, your own ideas or goals, like Angie was talking about changing systems, right, in there. And all of this is a part of advocacy, right? Our work as peer support specialists is to advocate on behalf of our peers, right? And sometimes on behalf of our colleagues, and sometimes on behalf of our own, in our own personal lives as well. So let's keep this going. Okay. So if you notice a few quotes in here, I just added them to you. I just thought it might be something to kind of keep us focused here. So this one's by Eva Lewis, and it says, to be an activist is to speak. To be an advocate is to listen. Society can't move forward without both. So making that clear distinction, right, between our professional advocacy and then our own personal activism as well. And so to kind of further make this distinction, and we are going to focus on advocacy and not activism, but in terms of like the distinction, the difference here, and I'm actually going to start with citizen activism, right, which are our rights in here in terms of a democracy, right? So looking at your own personal values, what's something that you're passionate about. This can be, and for the most part, can be political, right? Such as demonstrations, lobbying, rallies, so on and so forth, signatures, sending letters to an official that was part of your pre-work, etc. But this is something that we each do on our own time, right? We don't do it as part of work. This is something that we do. And so that the activism is for all of us. So my activism as Carlos, not as Carlos, the certified Medi-Cal peer support specialist. But in terms of advocacy at work, the focus is our peer, right? What is their goal? What are they trying to accomplish? What do they need the support systems, right? And then the other big part of this, which is really difficult, especially if we may not agree with something, right? We may not like it. And can we still be professional and avoid judging someone, even if they may be choosing to do something that we don't agree with? Because it isn't about us, it's about helping that member at that time. Done with respect and professionalism, and obviously upholds the code of ethics. So once you become certified as a Medi-Cal peer support specialist, and by the way, it happens right when you take the exam and you press it and you pass, you get a number and you're automatically bound by the code of ethics. You're automatically a mandated reporter if you're not already. These are things that come into play as soon as you become certified, right? So making sure that you understand the boundaries, not only within Cal Mesa, but also your entity or your organization that you're working for as well. All right. So this is the kind of like the challenge here a little bit. Whenever we're trying to get something done, right, in the name of justice, in the name of respect, in the name of helping someone and being there for them, aka advocating on their behalf, you know, there's a range that we can go about this, right? And if we're going to use on one end of the spectrum being passive and on the other one being aggressive, those are the extremes, right? And we tend to live in a world that can be very black and white, all or nothing kind of idea, but there is a spectrum. And so there is a range within the middle where there is some understanding, some passiveness, but there's also a little bit of aggression. That combination is that sweet spot, right? In that middle. Because if we come into either too passive or too aggressive, then we'll miss the mark, right? And then once again, the goal is to help the peer accomplish their task and what they need to do for themselves. So really focusing on what's that middle range and how does that middle range work for us as peer support specialists. Yeah. Another quote for you. They always say time changes things, but you actually have to change them yourself, right? So if you've ever tried to advocate on your own behalf, right, especially if you're struggling, I know that's happened to me, it is very difficult to do so. But if it's about me and it's about us and our lives and working peers to work on themselves, it does take us to be able to create that change. If we wait for someone to save us, to rescue us, right, to do the work for us, it will not happen, or very rarely does it happen. May someone please unmute themselves and read these steps for advocacy, please?
I can.
Thank you so much.
Define the problem. 2, do your research, find the facts, info you need to know to be effective. Watch your emotional temper. Brainstorm solutions. Decide on an action plan.
Boom. So much for that. Okay, so what we're going to do next, actually, so Renee's going to set up some breakout rooms. You're going to be in teams of 3 or 4, and I am intentionally not giving you too much information. There is a method to the madness here. You're going to use the first handout that's under role of advocacy in the syllabus, and it looks like this. It says advocacy and action scenarios, and there are 6 of them. And it gives you just a basic premise. It's, once again, not giving you a lot of information on purpose to see how you respond to this, okay? So I'm showing you this handout so you know what you're going to be doing working in your teams. And the idea is that you will collectively go through each of these scenarios. You'll talk about what the situation is, and then you look at it in terms of the lens of a peer support specialist. How would you approach this moving forward? What would be the next step? What are maybe like some ideas you have, or maybe questions as well, right? This isn't meant to be, once again, black or white, yes or no, good or bad. It's what are the steps that we can take to advocate in these kind of situations, because you may have encountered them already, or you may encounter them in the future as well. Okay. So, one time. Renee, are those breakout rooms ready to go?
They sure are.
Okay, perfect. So let me just do one more thing and then.
I just need Arabella to stay back.
So the instructions, if you want to know what you're going to be doing in your breakout room, are as follows. As a team, read, discuss, and decide what your next step or steps would be for each of the 6 scenarios as a peer support specialist, right? And then as you're talking, the key in our work is the why. Yesterday, we started with what's your why? What's our why, right? Why are you taking this step, right? It's really important. And that's how we distinguish between being reactionary versus being reflective. It's the why. There's a reason for this. We're not just responding to what's happening in the moment. And then we're going to come back and share to see what your findings are. Okay? Any questions on what you're going to do next in the breakout rooms activity? That makes sense so far? Yeah. And then remember, so there's 2 parts in this breakout room activity. One, it's twofold. 1, to build community, but then 2, obviously, to complete the task. 3, if you see myself or Renee or Helen coming in, I call it, you speak Spanish, a mosca on the wall or a fly on the wall. I'm just there to observe and working on my side gig, being a ninja. So hopefully you don't see me. But no, so don't take it as an intrusion. It's an extension of the learning space. But also, if you have questions or comments, feel free to address them when we're in there. Stephanie, what's up?
So on this activity, the advocate person is the person that we're advocating for?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you for that clarification. All right, let's pause the recording here. On faces. Awesome. No middle fingers. All right, we're good. So let's do this. Okay. I asked each team to choose a spokesperson to change the roles. And by the way, equity is important, right? And so to get that going here. Now, if you didn't get through all the scenarios, that's okay. All right, we're going to go one by one just to kind of get an idea, but I will ask a spokesperson. I'll just say room one, and I'll say these are the people. And as we go through, and then don't be surprised if Renee jumps in there as well and provides her lens as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with just showing the first one, right? Just so we're all on the same page, and then I'll take this off so that way we can see our beautiful faces. So the first situation, remember, we're addressing these advocacy and action scenarios with the lens of a peer support specialist, right? That's important. That's our lens here, right? So a peer comes to you, let's say I go to Renee, and I want to see my medical records, right? And then I tell Renee, the hospital representative says, we can't let you do that. I'm afraid, right? So what would be a potential next step? And I'm going to start off with room one. Who's your spokesperson? Angie, Arabella, Delvana, and Jeremy.
We didn't get to pick one.
Oh,
Are you
anyone
one
then.
of my peers?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Jody. Thank you for taking that on.
All right.
So
Who
should,
Was
says-
Jody, is she still talking?
No?
Jody,
I'll
are you
do it though.
presenting?
Go ahead, Angie.
Okay, so the first one was the medical records, right?
Correct.
Right.
Okay. I don't even remember what we said. But I know that we you have to talk to the patient, see what they talk to talk to somebody that's like higher up, that's like maybe beyond, maybe talk to the doctor and see if you can get in touch with their medical records or something. Maybe research on what you can do, like maybe to file something or get.
We were going to help the client get the form
Yeah, there you go.
and request their records. But typically if the person is still a patient, they can't request the records, especially in a psychiatric setting, because the data and information is still being collected. So typically they have to request the records upon discharge. So we decided as a group that we would try to help them acquire the form at the time of discharge, and if necessary, help them complete the form and ensure that someone would assist them outside of the hospital to obtain their records, whether they needed transportation to pick them up, and make sure that the person understood whether or not there were fees involved and how they would obtain those records electronically, by mail, etc.
That was
Well,
solid.
Yes, thank
But-
you.
well,
Hold
boom,
on.
there it is.
My
Hold on.
mind just went boom.
Here
I
we
just had a
go.
brain fart.
Murphy, this is for
Thank
Murphy,
you so much.
Carlos. Drop the
What's
mic,
up?
baby. Drop the mic.
Thank you for that reminder. Excellent, excellent.
Thank
And once
you.
again, it's okay if
Thank
you
you,
don't have.
Jody.
Yeah, thank you all. It's okay if you don't have, all the answers. And if I call on you and you're like, oh, we didn't get to that, that's okay too. This is why we refer to the collective wisdom in the group, right? The collective consciousness.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's one. Let's go to two. Requesting a change in medication. So once again, I come to Angie or Delvana and I'm like, they are my peer support specialists. And I'm like, hey, I need a change in my medication. I don't want to take these medications. And I tell Angie or Delvana, like my psychiatrist said, don't worry, it'll get better. You must hang in there for a while before they really start to work, right? And if anyone who's taking prescription medications understands that struggle, as I do as well. So here we go. Let's go to team 9. Team 9, Adri, Claudia, and Edie. Who is your spokesperson? What are your thoughts?
I'm the spokesperson. Our thoughts were Audrey had gave a great example, because if we're advocating for this member and they're saying that they don't want to take the medication, most likely, let's say we take the member is about 70 years old and we're documenting the symptoms. So when this member is taking the medication, we're documenting, seeing how these medications affect that person. And this way we can go ahead and tell the psychiatrist, it's not working. It's not working because whatever medication she's taking due to health issues, she could have high blood pressure, diabetes or something, and then this medication it's just not working. They're clashing. So we document those kind of symptoms and to make sure that we can, that's just one example to show that, the psychiatrist, it's not working. It's not working. They're clashing. We need to go ahead and change something, maybe lower the dose, something like that, because it could be where the psychiatrist can probably talk to the doctor and say, we got to lower her high blood pressure or whatever, diabetes, in order for her to take this medication. Example.
No, that's an excellent example. And thank you for that, Claudia. And the word and we're going to have a whole class on this, documentation. If it's not documented, it never happened, especially legally, right? And professional. And so, and I'll be honest, I'm not the best with documentation, but it is really important to have this, right, in there for the notes, for the points that Claudia just made. And for some people, they have to really sit down with someone they trust and, weigh out the options. Are the side effects worth what it's intended for? And vice versa? Or is there another approach, right? And remember, we're not excluding the medical model. We're not saying prescription medication does not work. It does work for some people. It doesn't work for everyone, right? And then are those side effects important enough to deal with whatever the intent is for that medication? Thank you so much, Team 9 and Claudia. All right, let's go to scenario number 3. So number 3 says, getting a refund from the Social Security office. I come up to Claudia, I come up to Renee, and I'm like, I'm entitled to a refund. I've been overcharged. And when I went to go get it, they said, I'm sorry, but I don't see anything wrong with your records. Perhaps you've got the accounting wrong. So on those notes, let's go to team 2. Deanna, Kelvin, Olivia, and Simak. Who's your spokesperson?
Oh, we didn't get the chance to pick one, but I could talk for them.
Thank
So
you, Deanna.
basically what we came up with was to please ask them to review the information again and also to allow them to express their concerns and actually acknowledge that. And if not, and they're not willing to, then ask them okay, well, who would be the next best person to talk to? So that way they can express oh, okay, well, I'm not okay with this answer. It doesn't make me feel comfortable. So let's do what's going to help the client feel comfortable.
Person-centered language there. Thank you, Deanna, for stepping up. Definitely, right? What's in the best interest of the client. And thank you for that, team 2. All right, let's go to scenario number 4. Well, this is a little more different, right? So roommate, is borrowing the car, right? And then, I'm like, hey, I want you to pay for gas. And I'm telling Deanna, or stop borrowing my car because, nothing's cheap right now. It's gas almost $5 a gallon. Roommate says, and I tell Deanna, I hardly ever use it. Look at all the things I do for you. Ooh, sounds like bartering here and miscommunication. Let's see where we're at. Team 8, Carla, Charles, Jeffrey, Mayeli. Who is your spokesperson and how would you address this? Dun, dun, dun.
So I can speak for my team.
Gracias.
You're welcome. So and we apologize. We got to scenario 2. We were talking about the medication. I don't know if you want to skip us just because we didn't get to scenario.
No worries. Thank you for the honesty. And I do love the honesty as well, by the way. So in that case, let's go into boom, boom, boom. Team 3, Kylis, Lisette, and Luz. Were you able to get into that scenario?
No, we stop in. Oh, did we do that one? Oh, I think we did. Never mind.
I don't think we got to
No, right?
finish.
I think that
No.
was the last one when we got out.
Right.
We
Got it.
stop in 3.
Thank you for that. Did anyone else get to that scenario in any of the other teams? Team 4. And if not, in that
We
case, let's
did.
do. Okay, what you
In
get?
room 6.
And go ahead, Simone.
So for the roommate borrowing the car part, it was the part that I didn't like at the end was that it was look at all the things I do for you. You don't do something for somebody to throw it back in their face. That's just not right. But as far as what I would recommend or next step I would take it as a peer support specialist would be to inform them that setting boundaries will help keep that middle line where you don't cross over my line, I don't cross over yours, and replacing what you use is just common decency. So if anybody's using somebody's car, you would think they would put gas back in their car.
Yeah, sounds right. Common sense, common decency ain't so common anymore, y'all. It's something to keep in mind as we move
Yeah, it's
forward.
crazy.
Thank you so much for that, Samantha. All right.
Of
And
course.
so let's I'm assuming that, well, not assuming, I don't like to make assumptions, but if teams did not get to 5 and 6, that's fine. We can do this together. So for this is the fifth scenario. I go to Luz or I go to Samantha and I'm like, look, landlord comes back into checking the apartment without warning. He just came in. I'm telling you, I'm entitled to have a 24 hours notice before they can actually enter my apartment. And I tell you, look, the landlord said, it's a lot of people who want these apartments. If you don't like the way I work, you can just go somewhere else. Ooh, go ahead. Go ahead, Jody, and then Angie. What are your thoughts? How would we approach this scenario?
Well, our group didn't get to it, but what I wrote on my papers, because I read this before, and I wrote, hey, that's fine. Let's take it up with the housing authorities, because then they can't say anything. And you can write a letter to the housing authorities about what this landlord is doing because he's considered a slumlord. You can also take them to court.
Yes and yes. Thank you for that, Jody. Angie, what do you got?
Okay, what I got was that we can go over the laws and regulations on what landlord and tenant laws in California are, and then we can research that and then go from there. Start off with writing a demand letter and telling them exactly what it is that we want to be done, and then these are the laws, lay it all out for them so they know that we did our research. And then tell them that if that's not going to go our way, then we can hire a lawyer and go from there.
Thank you for that, Angie. Laws and letters. And by the way, so your pre-work was just a template, something to get you thinking and activating. If you're in a situation, not only for yourself, but for a peer, how would you support someone like Angie just said, right? So there are situations where we need to kind of step out of our comfort zones and help someone do something formal, like a letter, like review the law, right? What is this process? Adri, what do you got?
I was gonna say something similar, like they have to have a written notice of 24 hours before of that. And if not, and if it's just verbal, it doesn't count for verbal. So that's when you kind of look at those. It's just so funny because a lot of the things are like happening at my work right now. So it's like actually like really kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie to you. So yeah.
So these scenarios are based on real reality. So as Adrian knows as well. Thank you for that. Gina, what do you got?
I was going to say, I would first clarify with him, first of all, because maybe it's an emergency that he's coming in for, first of all. Maybe it's like a gas leak or something. And so I would want to clarify first that, like, hey, is this an emergency? And then if he said, no, I'm just coming in to check just randomly, state that, hey, I have a 24-hour, we as per the law, could we or you don't even have to bring it the law, maybe like, next time can we schedule you coming by, and then you can state the law from there. But I would like to clarify first, because you just never know if there's like some unknown reason, that I may not be aware of, that he's coming in.
Well said. And I really appreciate Gina reminding us of like, hey, let's step back for a second and focus on the most important part of advocacy, which is your communication. What is being communicated? Right? And then what is it? And sometimes miscommunication does happen. So it's important to not, overstep or react if it's not needed.
Because it could be escalated, and then it gets into a fight, and then now he's mad at you and you're mad at him because you jumped.
And now we're in the parking lot for Fight Club. That's just
Right.
what I do on Friday nights.
Yes.
On Friday nights on my own. Just kidding. All right. Thank you for that. Let's go to the last one, the sixth scenario. So, and feel free, if you have a response, please unmute yourself. So once again, changing my case manager, right? And so I'd like a new case manager. I need a new one. I try to work with Sally, but we do not work well together, Gina and Adri. We don't. And then the supervisor comes back. I'd love to help you on this, but we just want to have another case manager that can work with you. How would we go with this? Adri, what do you got?
So that actually happens. That happens a lot, super often. So I think I would ask the client exactly like, what is it? Is it preference? Some people are hypersexual. Some people are, that's like a thing that's happened. Some people they get triggered. Like some therapists are not good for certain clients because they remind them of their mom who used to la. So finding like, okay, is it for their safety or is it a preference? Because some agencies don't have a bunch of case managers. So you want to prioritize like, okay, what's the reason? And if it's because it's a trigger, then we work with the rest of our team to kind of coordinate, okay, they don't respond well to men because of past rapes or this or that, or they don't respond well to women because of this and that. So just kind of figuring out older, younger, some people don't respond well to older guys, girls, some people don't respond, some people respond. I have a lot of clients respond to me well because I'm younger, right? So it's just kind of figuring out what that is and then going to your supervisor. Oh my God, English supervisor. And then yeah, working from there and advocating for this client. This is the client's history. This is why they feel this way. It's a trigger. We should change.
Thank you, Adrian, for going down to the root of it. And then, so what is the root cause of all of this, right? In there. And at times, like Adrian brought up a really good point. At times it may seem personal, but it's actually, you know, a little T word that maybe none of us have ever heard. Trauma, right? And so whether at a conscious or subconscious level, right? If I've had certain trauma with a certain group of people or a certain person, I can be activated, right? AKA triggered. And so that's important to acknowledge what is the reason here. Is it just, oh, I just don't like Adri, I just don't want to work with her? That's very different from I have a certain reality situation, you know, a sibling, whatever that may be, and it could be impeding the goals of that. What do you think so far, Renee? I see you over there like throwing thumbs, Renee, looking good. Yeah.
They're on fire. They're on fire. That's I didn't have to step in. This is pretty good. I
Yeah,
love
Renee's
it.
been waiting. She's just been waiting. She's just like, all right, what can I chime in? So well done, y'all. Okay, so that was actually, so that first round, once again, was minimal, right? Just throwing it at you. And like Adri, I think you were the one who said, like, we're going through this right now. And that's one of the best compliments that we can get because we don't just make stuff up. We use reality, we use real scenarios to guide all of us because it's not just about passing the exam. That's part one, right? The reality is about how would this all work in the field with other human beings in reality. That's what it comes down to as well. Okay, so we're going to go through a few more slides and then we're actually going to go take our first break. So just bear with me a little bit and please excuse my congestion as well. All right, so as we move forward here, another, and if you know Greta Thunberg, you know that she's all about advocacy. When enough people come together, then change will come. And when we can achieve almost anything. So instead of looking for hope, start creating hope. So this is why we start with welcoming and belonging and concepts of hope, recovery, and wellness, right? Remember, people are smart, right? They can smell BS a mile away. And nobody likes manure, even when it's helping things grow, right? And so instead of pretending, let's be real. Let's help each other out. And they can feel that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into each of these steps with a little more kind of sauce, a little more information in there. And remember, this isn't like the assumption here isn't like, oh, you have no idea what advocacy is. Not at all. We're just kind of focusing on in terms of what it would look like as a peer support specialist. So the first part, when we're looking at defining the problem, okay, and this was said in multiple ways by your peers, what is the root issue? What is this person trying to get accomplished, right? What is this outcome? Questions help a lot, right? The more questions we ask, the more context clues we can get, the more information we can use to make the appropriate action. So does the individual have this right to ask for a change in the case manager, to ask for their manager not to come into their apartment, to ask their roommate not to use their car, right? What impact will this have on other people, on the roommate, on the professionals they're working with, right? And people in general. And then ultimately, who is responsible? Who is involved in this situation? With that being said, though, ultimately, who dictates what each of us does in our day-to-day life? Who is ultimately responsible for our lives? Yep, that person, right? And so then when it comes to working with peers, members, consumers, who gets to decide what actions to take? Us or them? Right? Yeah, and that's really important. It's really important, especially if we don't agree, right? And that's okay. But remember, we're taking the personal part out of it because ultimately it's about that person and not us in there. Okay. So after we identify the problem, the second step, we got to do our research. And a lot of you said this. I love it. The legality, the letters, the processing, right? The filing, the appealing, all of this stuff is really important. What laws, which court cases can help accomplish this or reference? Because part of the struggle is also, in many ways, educating ourselves on our rights, on our resources, and on the actionable steps that we can take to defend ourselves, right? In other words, advocate for ourselves. Is there a grievance process? Is there a complaint box? Just kidding, there's no complaint box. Is there a formal process that we need to follow within the organization? And if you've worked with any vehicle, Social Security Office, the DMV, EDD, there are very set structures of how we process all of this. So knowing, doing our homework, doing our pre-work, doing the research helps a lot so that we can actually take the appropriate steps and avoid being reactionary. And the idea here is also, you know, going back to that measure, you know, being in the middle, not too aggressive, not too passive, right? Who else can we bring along to help us, right? What connections do we have, right? Who else can we go to, an agency or someone in contact to help us with this matter as well? Right? So doing the research. Okay, next part. And this is probably the most important part in here, not necessarily for each of us in here as just us, but also the people that we're working with, right? When someone's upset, when someone's angry, when someone is struggling, when they're hurting, they're dealing with chronic pain, so on and so forth, it's really, and they're dealing with some of these issues, it's really easy to get fueled on emotion. And in particular, if we're looking at anger, right? And how we express that. And so checking in with ourselves, checking in with our peers, having them check in with themselves is really, really important in order to get this accomplished. Go ahead, Carla.
I just have a question pertaining to this topic here, because I have trouble with regulating my facial features. Like, you know, when I hear something, I see Adrian's like me too. When I hear something or they're explaining something, like I'm just very expressive with my face. And so a lot of people have got it wrong, where they're like, "Oh, are you judging me? Or why did you make that face?" And I'm like, "Not at all. I'm just very expressive. It's what I can't control it, you know?" What would you suggest for that?
Ooh, I'm gonna let Renee, I'm gonna tap Renee in here and then I'll chime in. Go ahead, Renee.
That's that poker face, baby. Practice mirror work now. What I could say about this one from my own experience and what we're talking about emotional intelligence here is, okay, let's say Social Security Office. Okay. The work that we do, most likely, if you're going to be accompanying someone to the Social Security Office, GR, all these different places. And so it's good to get good with someone there that's going to help you out. So have a good relationship. You know what I'm saying? So when you come back, they're going to be helpful with other members. So I'm think with emotional intelligence, like if you're going to get puffy with them, most likely they're not going to help you out and they're all going to be in the back going, "Hey, that one," you know what I mean? So if you get a good resource, like I would get a resource with a dentist, right? And housing is really hard because everybody's trying to get it, right? So you want to build your rapport, get your what is it, your contacts, your networking. But if I'm going to share it with loose, right? And then Luce is going to be all talking smack or bringing people and not doing, you know what I mean? And then it's like, "Oh man, you really Luce, that's my connection," kind of thing. Is that making sense? So we want to have that emotional intelligence as in keeping calm, right? But having a good rapport. I think when I'm thinking of the emotional, that's when, there's times when I've had to really advocate for someone and it is really hard, but just check yourself before you wreck yourself, baby. Just you already have that awareness right now. So let's just work on it moving forward. And really, we can't tell you exactly what to do if we learn as we go. So I hope that was helpful.
Mm. Wage and wisdom there. Thank you so much, Renee, for that as well. Jody, what do you got?
Yeah, my dad, and I always remembered this when I had to advocate for me, for my body, for me, or my daughter, because I had to advocate a lot. Get more with honey than you do with vinegar. So when you are sweet to the person, you can go back and be a resource to that person, or that person can be your resource. And I've had to do this so many times. There has been people in regional center for my daughter, who is now 30. "Hey, I don't like the way you're talking to me. I've taken a step back," or blow a bubble, as they say. I'm taking a step back, take a breath, and say, "Look, I understand emotions are high, but listen, I'm trying to advocate for my daughter. I'm trying to advocate for this person. Can you help me here?" And when you say help, It's something that triggers someone that they want to help you. So just remember, get more with honey than you do with vinegar.
Definitely. Thank you for that reminder, Jody. Carla, I hope it helps. I know she stepped away right now, but I love the honesty. And Adriel, I saw your face too. And it's one of those things where some of us are more expressive with our facial features, right? And then sometimes I don't even realize when I'm doing certain things. And like Renee be like, did you notice your face? I was like, no, I had no idea. Right. So really checking in with ourselves. I'll be honest with you, I get very protective of people. Like I barely met you all, but like if I needed to help you out, I would go through Zoom and go to you and help you out, right? And so I say that because sometimes my protective nature can get the best of me, right? And so if I run hot, I'm sweating all the time. I'm sweating right now, but like if I sense myself to getting hot, like I will be like, hey, I need to use the restroom, like physically remove myself for a second if it gets to that point, because then I need to check in with myself and be like, hey, hold on, what's the goal here, right? Is the goal to like create some kind of animosity, or like Jody was saying, are we trying to get to the goal itself and find the path of least resistance, right? So both of those are really important for us as well. And I love the fact that you're all being open and honest about your questions, because this is the space to do it, right? The last thing you want is to be like in the field and be like, what the do I do next? Go ahead, Adrian.
So I kind of have the same thing, except mine is like my energy. Like I've told, I'm a very energetic person, and so sometimes it can kind of bleed over, and sometimes not in the best way. Because like I'll go to a place and like you want to be with your client, you want to be calm, you want like something with SSI, someone who's been working with it for years and they're getting denied, and it's a frustrating thing. And like I'm new, I'm learning these systems, and so like sometimes I can get kind of like, okay, this is what we need to do. And instead of being like kind of like that person that's okay, we got to do this and this and this, how do I kind of shift? How do I convey that we got to do stuff, but I in a way that they'll take it like more like I'm here for you in that like the empathetic way, so that I'm able to kind of convey it in like just softer, because with those things like that I tend to like business, I'm like, okay, we got to schedule this and that, and like I don't want to be like that because some people don't take that the right way. So, and I want to be able better for my clients.
And I love that you're practicing the self-awareness as well. Sydney, did you have a comment back for Adrian? I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, kind of sort of
Go
the
ahead.
same thing. I don't want to take too much time because we're going to go on break soon. But I found that the best way for me to work with clientele now, especially because a lot of you guys have said, well, Adrian specifically had said like Social Security. For everyone here, like I work with Social Security. So if you ever need that resource, that would be me. It's not a nonprofit. We are for profit, but we're legal representations. And I really have clients like that come to me all the time, especially reentry, because we don't want denials, right? For those of us that work with it, we know we don't want denials. But I found that working with clients to kind of like calm myself and have them really trust me and believe like that I'm there to help them, is that I really look at like my background with work, right? Carlos, we both spoke about working with fourth grade specifically, right? Like 8-year-olds. And those kids, really, for as long as that I was working with them, I kind of like I go out into my job and packed meetings and all of these different things, that these events that I work, I kind of look at my adults that I'm working with, like maybe they didn't have someone like me before that really listened and wanted to help them, especially the communities that I used to work in, South Central, Inglewood, down in LA, and I look at them as older adults that are still hurting and may not have been listened to when they were young. So I'm just there smiling as if I would with my kids. And yeah. So I just try to come up with it, smile. I'm just listening. I've been there, done that. I try not to relate too much too quickly to their story unless they really want me to do that, because I don't want to keep them from telling their whole story if that's what they need from me in that moment. And then I tell them what I have. I've also collected a lot of resources throughout my time that I've been with my company. So I have a ton of resources on housing, by the way. So if you need that too, Amity is a big one. They house same day, that's one of the ones I have, but I have a ton. I have like 2 resource books and also a book of business cards because I have a lot of representatives that I've created partnerships with. So if you do work in that field already, just, you can just send me a message or however you want to communicate, and I'll provide that to you.
Thank you for that, Sydney. This is the beauty of CAPS. We collective consciousness, collective sharing of resources. So Claudia, did you have something to add to that? I saw your hand up. I'm not sure if you wanted to chime in.
Yeah, it was just a personal experience in regards to when I went into an office and I was very green trying to get information from them. And it was like a DMV kind of office and they were just so cold. So I had to change my tactic and I had to tell them, switch it to let them know they're in control. And so I would tell them like, I was like, with your experience, with your expertise, can you please tell me how you can help me? I'm very green in this. I just need someone to walk me through this step by step. If you don't mind, you're more experienced than I am. So I switched it to let them know they're in control and it worked. It really worked. I was like, kind of like, oh my gosh, because I needed that information from them so bad. And a lot of them are very cold in that office. And it's just, I needed it. I had to change it quick. I was like, I got to go ahead and be like a salesman or car salesman.
Definitely. Thank you for that, Claudia. And I love these real base examples of who we are. Like we're going to get into self-awareness and self-care before we get into self-disclosure, but this is really important, right? Because remember, one of the biggest roles that we have as peers support specialists is that we're an example for others. We model our behavior. We're not perfect. We're going to have our moments. We're going to F up, right? We're going to, get hot and bothered and all that kind of stuff, but then we can recenter ourselves in practice. And so we're not always going to get it right, but the more we are checking in with ourselves and that awareness and kind of in time, we can deal with all of these. And so I really appreciate the honesty from all of this. Let's do this. Let's take our first break here. So we have a couple more steps to review. And then once we go back through the thoroughness of each step, we're going to go into your second breakout room, right? And then we're going to go a little bit deeper in terms of advocacy, in terms of those scenarios. So I'll get into that next. Once again, thank you for those of you that are keeping it real in terms of like, hey, I struggle with my temperature. Renee and I talk about this all the time, like just kind of like reality when it kicks in and actually in there. And so just as a friendly reminder that ultimately to be an effective advocate means to be focused on what the end goal is, right? And doing whatever you are willing and able to within reason, within boundaries, right? To support that peer. And that is something that's important to kind of keep us going, especially if we are getting heated or maybe ice cold, either way. All right. So after we check in with ourselves, practice that self-awareness, hey, we move beyond the problem. We start looking at solutions, right? What is the next plausible step or steps that we can take? What strengths do I have? Does my team have? Does the peer have that we can work with? Is a letter the best format for that, for that manager or for that, so on and with that doctor and it's all these other scenarios we talked about? Or would it be better for me to go into the Social Security office, to go into the EDD center and actually set up an appointment, right? Depending on the situation and the goal, right? Those different scenarios can play out as needed as well. And what are your resources? I heard many of you talking about, hey, Sydney's like, I got you, housing, this kind of stuff. What are your connections? And what's beautiful about CAPS is that we're constantly learning and evolving from all of you and alumni like you, right? They're like, hey, did you know about this resource, Carlos? Or, hey, I'm working for this organization now up in the Bay, whatever it may be. It really helps us to know kind of what's going on across the state because you never know when you can help each other out. And this is just a friendly reminder. One, we do have an alumni portal, which we'll talk more about. But then two, we encourage you to communicate with yourselves, to build community, and not something that's sponsored through CAPS or anything, but hey, you all feel free to kind of take this energy and this experience with you together. Jody, what do you got?
I have a question. So we're here in LA County, and some of you are in Orange County, but is each county and each city have different things, like different laws or different situations that you may put in that might be like different, whereas federal might be the same? each city is it different? Like when you deal with regional center or deal with like things of laws from different cities.
If I understood you correctly, Jody, so we all, like federal law, state law applies to everyone, right? But each county has, like maybe Department of Mental Health, the county department or one has their
Yeah.
policies. And so,
Yeah.
so you're right, within that region, right, within that county, it's important to know what are the protocols or the processes, because they may change from LA County to San Diego to so on and so forth.
Okay. So is that also with resources?
Yes. And I'm going to get into that next when we do the breakout activity. Yes, definitely has to do with resources. Why did I mute myself? Thank you for that, Jody. So looking at resources, and then finally, as we go in there, okay, what the heck are we going to do? Let's start doing this, right? Has anyone ever heard of a SMART goal? Out of curiosity, the acronym SMART goal? Anybody? Okay, so Michael's here. So this idea that, right, you make it very focused, it's specific,
What's
it's
the
measurable.
acronym again? I'm sorry.
Oh, it's SMART. Oh, yeah, it's SMART. So it stands for specific, measurable, accountable. What's the R for? Anybody remember? I want to say resources, but I could be wrong. And then time.
Relevant.
Relevant. Thank you. Thank you so much, y'all. So yeah, the SMART acronym can help us tune in and focus on what we're trying to do, especially if there's a time crunch. Is there a deadline we need to meet to not avoid kind of escalating the situation? Which kind of documentation do we need? Remember, if it's not written down, if it's not documented, it's almost like it didn't happen, right? And so everything else can be hearsay. And then if for some reason it doesn't work the first time, regroup and figure out how you like to proceed. What are the other options? Get feedback from your supervisor, from your team, from your colleagues, right? And look at other scenarios as well, because where there is a will, there's a way. And most importantly, the idea here is to be checking in not only with ourselves, but also with the peer. How are they doing throughout this process, right? How are they able to kind of see why we're taking each of these steps with them and on their behalf as well? So Angela Davis, make sure someone is really, really important talking about social justice if you know anything about her. And this quote, I think, is really important for us to look at what our work as peer support. And she states, "I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things I cannot accept." So it really comes from our focus, our lens, right? How our perspective and how we are viewing things. And in our work, creating some type of justice, social justice, however you want to call it, advocacy work is important. And then we'll hit some walls. We'll have some slippery slopes in there, but there's definitely a way forward if we have the willingness to endure. Okay. So let's do this. Let me see. No, give me 1 second. Okay. For this next breakout room activity, what we're going to do is as follows. So in the student portal, the second handout that you have for today is entitled Advocacy Vignettes. And so think of the first round that we did as like an appetizer. This is going to be the main course. And so Renee will put you into breakout rooms again, and we're going to have 8 breakout rooms. So that means there's going to be two breakout rooms that are going to focus on Stephen, which is number 1. And then we'll have 2 that focus on Lisa, which is number 2. We'll have 2 teams that will focus on Hope, number 3. And last but not least, Joel or Joel, number 4. There'll be 2 teams. You're going to have more time in here. You're going to have 15 minutes to go through the scenario and really focus on one situation, look at the questions, and dissect the process, the situation, the vignette, using those 5 steps that we just talked about. And I'll be honest with you, the idea here is that discussion, is that sharing of resources and linkage that was talked about, that Sydney mentioned, that Jody was asking about, right? What do you know about in terms of your county, in your organization, in your area that may help this situation? Because the more we learn about what's available, which especially when it comes to resources, the better equipped we'll be to actually use them when it's needed. Okay. Now, along those lines, let me 1 second. So just to make sure we're on the same page here. All right. In terms of your instructions for this, this activity, it's going to be very similar to the first one, just more thorough, right? As a team, you'll read, you'll analyze, and you'll apply the steps of advocacy to provide answers to the questions for your assigned vignette. Remember that I will ask for each team to choose a spokesperson. It just helps us kind of focus on that and share the load as well, right? If someone is taking notes or giving more ideas, and have someone else be the spokesperson and vice versa. Okay? But the idea is that collectively together, you're looking at it and, hey, how would we really approach this? Or what are some actual situations we've had in the past that can help guide us here? How does that sound so far? Oh, you're all still awake? Awesome. All right, awesome. So, Renee, how are those breakout rooms ready to rock and roll?
They're ready.
Awesome.
You want to
In that
send them
case-
to their room? Ah,
I don't, but apparently you do.
no. I'm like, I feel uncomfortable now. Go to the room.
Here we go. Okay. Hopefully that was enough time in there. So kind of going in there, right? Definitely heard some great conversations. What I'm going to do first is I'm just going to read out, since different teams had a different scenario or a vignette, just want to make sure we're all on the same page. And then I'm going to ask the two teams or the
He's breaking
spokespersons.
up.
Excuse me? I'm going to ask the spokespersons from each of the two teams that have the vignette to chime in terms of how they approach this scenario. So here we go. The first one, Stephen has had trouble with one of the medications he is on. He did not know that weight gain was a side effect until his mother did some research and she told him. He has been unable to talk with his doctor about it because he is embarrassed. Stephen has talked to you about it and has asked for your help. All right, so let's talk about Stephen. And I'm actually going to start with the team that's Stephen B. Ooh, changing it up. So Andra, Edie, Lisette, Michael, Sarah, who is your spokesperson? What do you have for us? And then we'll have Stephen A. chime in.
I can share.
Thank you, sir.
Would you mind pulling up hold on, I have it. Let me just switch my.
I can.
Okay, there we go. No, I got it. Okay, question one, would you involve the family? We kind of had a quick discussion about whether or not Stephen is a minor, and since that information isn't clear, like we were like, well, it depends on if he's a child or an adult. We kind of went about this assuming he was an adult. So we said we would ask him, obviously, if he wants us to involve his family. We're not going to do that without his consent. And we just, talking to him if he wants his family in the know. But like baseline, probably not, since it's kind of like a personal thing and he feels embarrassed. So we wouldn't probably involve the family unless he like explicitly wanted that. Would we consider doing research ourselves? Maybe, but ideally you would be doing the research with Stephen and like kind of empowering him to find out information about the side effects and learn himself. And then like also along the lines of empowerment, like just helping him to again learn and reaffirming to him that he doesn't have to be on the medicine. Like we can't tell him to be, we don't even know what the medicine is, but like no matter how important it seems, like he's in control of his own body and what happens to his body. So he's the one who gets to decide whether he wants to stay on it or off it. Like not us, not his mom, not his doctor has that like power, decision making power. So like helping him get all the information, reaffirming his like bodily autonomy and sense of choice, in the matter, and also like maybe exploring other options if he wants to stay on the medicine, like diet, exercise, nutrition, like talking through some of that kind of stuff to empower him to feel good about his body and strong and all that stuff. And then we didn't get to the last question. We actually just kind of started talking as a group and reflecting.
No worries, Sarah, because I'm actually tagging the other group here. So thank you so much for representing. Perfect. Thank you for that. All right. For Stephen A, well done, team. Let's go into, Stephen B team. Stephen A, Amanda, Martin, Samantha, and Sam. What do we got?
Yeah. So, did you want to chime in on the last part, or did you want me to go from the beginning?
Yeah, chime in on the last part, please. And then if you want to echo one thing or two, that's fine.
Yeah. So no, pretty much, yeah, we kind of agree with what Sarah was saying in the first few. Yeah, we kind of want to, kind of get his consent first if we want his family to get involved, right? We want to make sure he's okay with it, feels comfortable, and also kind of learn. We also said that we would do some research on our own just to kind of, touch bases on the type of medication he is to kind of better support him, get some better knowledge ourselves to kind of see how we can better understand his situation, right? And also his empowerment. Yeah, we want to make sure he agrees, he knows that he does have the power to kind of feel like if he can take the medication or not. And on the last part as well, we would say we would relate to his doctor by kind of maybe chiming in or being there for his visit, his doctor's visit, or kind of, you know, being there whenever his doctor's around to kind of better support him.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Martin and Stephen B. Definitely. What do you think, Renee? Good. Mic drop. Nicely done. And so I heard a
That
lot
was
of
good.
doing with and not doing for, right? And then I really appreciated that you all, in the first group in particular, made the distinction about age. Why does it matter if the person is a minor or an adult? What would change in that scenario, out of curiosity, in terms of the family involvement? Any thoughts? Go ahead, Jody.
Consent.
Well, I know in a scenario with a minor, you have to consent with the parents. You have to talk with the parents because they don't, unfortunately, they don't have the right to speak, even though in a lot of cases with medical at 13 years old, they do have the right to speak. However, being a minor, it's up to the parents.
So we
But
get
I think joining the kid, the minor in, if they are old enough, so we're talking like 13 and up, they're old enough to speak on what's happening to themselves, but you do have to have the parents there.
And I believe Charlene was echoing what you said. Thank you for that, Jody. All right, so let's move on to our second vignette. And so this one is for Hope, or for Lisa, excuse me. Okay, it says, one of your friends has told you about a woman who needs some help. She has given you her phone number. Lisa is 20 years old and is seeing a doctor in private practice for medications. This next appointment will be her last as she is losing her private insurance. She has applied for Social Security and has received her award letter, but the check has not come in yet. After next week, she will not have any medical insurance to get the meds or services she needs. What would you do to help Lisa? A week later, your friend calls you and wants to know what you have been doing to help. So Team Lisa's. All right, this time we're going to start off with Lisa A, Adri, Claudia, Dexter, Francesca, Jeff. Who's your spokesperson?
I guess it was me. We were gonna have Dexter, but he was having some technical issues. And then my members, my group, if chime in if I get anything wrong, if you don't mind. But as we were saying, you know, there's general relief programs that can help with benefits for people who have this kind of situation. So especially if they do have maybe they're low income. There's some of them who also are working at the same time, so they're kind of in between. And so Francesca chimed in and she just said there is something like that, and there's like an umbrella of resources that can help out. Sometimes they do have to pay a little bit, but it's showing though that they're getting assistance. So there's always something in there. There may be a little bit of red tape, but there's always resources that can help them, and especially in communities. Even though it's the state of California, but if they're in their community, they can get helps with other clinics that can assist them just for the meantime until something kicks in for them in regards to the insurance. Also, you know, and to empower Lisa, if she's having that, you know, she's not sure if anyone's helping her, we are setting up goals for her. We're letting her know we've got an army of people around her, showing her that are the resources, this is who we're contacting, this is who we're going to go ahead and email, this is the time, like a timeline, letting her know we've got to call back at this time. And also there's her friends asking, you know, have we helped her? It's going to go back into the same thing. We set goals. We're letting her friend know, we're communicating. Everyone's all intact. Everyone's getting all the information. I lost a train of thought, but that's what I'm going to say.
The train left the station, but thank you for that. GR is important, right? There are emergency resources and support, especially for these kind of topics. So thank you so much for that, for Lisa A team. Let's go to Lisa B. Anything to add on, or maybe an echo? Angie, Charlene, Jeffrey, Gina, and Kaius.
One thing I'd like to add that was really great, Claudia. Thank you for all that. Yeah, I think it was Charlene, who had added that, maybe we could help her apply to like another service in the meantime, which would be like Medi-Cal or something. We also had decided that we would not give any information to Lisa, or wait, to the friend who calls and wants to know what you have been doing to help. So I don't know, because I feel like that's kind of a HIPAA or, that type of thing. So we can't really get in trouble with that. Is that correct? So that's something that we wanted to add to that.
Definitely. And we'll get into HIPAA and legality and laws.
Yeah.
And all
So
that.
what would you say to the friend? I mean, I didn't know exactly what to say. I just knew I couldn't say anything. So it's
You
just
say nothing. You're not allowed to say anything.
yeah.
That's really what it is.
What, yeah, you say yeah.
You don't say anything. And
So
this
that's
is where
what we would
yeah,
add to that scenario.
that's an excellent point. And this comes back to confidentiality and also HIPAA in particular, right? And
Yes.
so you're gonna love psych rehab next. So we're gonna get into that a little bit more.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you. Thank you for that. Adri, what's up?
Unless you have an ROI with the friend and the thing through the company that you're able to release information, you can't do that.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm gonna say ROI a lot just because we talk about
ROI, right? And what does ROI stand for? ROI?
Release of information.
Information, right? So once again, documentation. It's not written, it doesn't exist, right? It can be like Adri said, you can tell me. Don't work that way. Thank you for that. Well done, both teams. All right, let's go on to the third scenario. We're going to get into now Hope. So for Hope, here is a situation. Hope is one of your groups at work, is in one of your groups at work. She took you aside after a group and told you she has no money for food. She goes on to explain that she has a payee and has not received her check, which is a day late. You come to find out her older sister is her payee and she works 2 jobs, so she is difficult to reach. How would you advocate for Hope to get what she needs in this situation? And let's start out with Team Hope B. So Hope B, we have Irene, Nageli, Stephanie, Sydney, and Tana. Who's your spokesperson?
I don't think we picked a spokesperson.
Go ahead, Stephanie. Steph.
But yeah, so we were just discussing sorry, let me go back to the thing. Yeah, we were just discussing oh, my dog. Shh, be quiet. First understanding her situation, and because the sister's her payee, and so with her being busy, what I had said was, if we could get an understanding of this is something that's happening often, if it's a one-time thing with in particular with her not having food or not having her money to get her food, because if it was something that was like a repeated pattern, then I think that we would definitely have to look into understanding what's going on with the sister, and try and bridge that gap there. And then if it happens to be just a one-time thing, then we would probably take the route of looking at food banks or something that she can get food immediately, just until her sister's able to give her money. But I guess it all just depended on whether or not it was a situation where the sister is kind of disconnected from her needs simply because she has 2 jobs, or if it just is one of them weeks where she's just more busier than normal.
Thank you for that, Stephanie, and for stepping up. Right. So what's the context? What are the details? Is this an exception, a pattern, or a rule? Really important in there as well. Your spokesperson from Hope A, we have Angela, Lisa, Luz, Olivia. Anything to add or to echo?
We pretty much talked about the same thing, just to make sure that it is like a one-time thing. And if it's continuing, where it's more than one time, I would go ahead and get on a email thread with Hope, her sister, and then myself, and then because all emails have the date, time, it's pretty much documentation that we're gonna have on file. So we're gonna go ahead and follow up with the sister via email. And then also see if Hope has a bank account, and if she doesn't, try to assist with getting a bank account and also direct deposit set up for her.
Thank you for that add-on as well. Sydney, what do you have?
I just have a question. I feel like this is like super hard for me to understand of what I would do in this role because I don't have any case management experience. So I'm trying to understand the parameters of how you even function, right? Like in this role. So to me, like I'm thinking like I'm gonna give them a few resources on these days that I already know exist, that these food banks are open so that they will hold themselves over for as long as it needs, right? And then seeing what's going on with the sister, do all that. And then for me, I would have given this person information on financial literacy, even though she has a payee. What happens if the sister, I don't know, dies or something? Like, to me, I wouldn't want it to be the end, right? Where I'm just trying to reach out to the sister. I would want them to have at least the value of $1 to have that knowledge, because I don't want that person to feel limited and I want them to have autonomy, right? So I just wonder, like, is it just documentation and getting them food to meet that that bottom part of the pyramid, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or am I going to go a step further, and am I going to give them a little bit more so that they can function in times of urgent need and emergency?
Ooh, now we're in it. All right, Adri, bring it. What do you have?
Okay, so I deal with that a lot. I have a client who has a hard time budgeting. She has a few diagnoses, a few health diagnoses that she's dealing with. She's very childlike in her mind. She's very stuck in her early young teenage years. So oftentimes some of them have more needs than others. So I give them the resources and I go with them and we schedule and we plan. Okay, like when we're budgeting, okay, let's say you get EBT, you get this much, right? If the sister's a payee, okay, then the situation is she probably can qualify for EBT, so let's get her set up for that, and then let's budget. Okay, you qualify for 200 and something a month. Okay, let's see what other incomes can we get you, and then we set, okay, you can spend $100 a week for these weeks, and I know that I have a food bank that's open on Tuesday at 9 a.m. I have another one that's open on Thursday. I have, we can go to Walmart, and you teach them like, okay, let's not go to Cedar Brothers because it's too expensive. We can't afford that right now, right? We go to Walmart, we go to Aldi's, we go to a grocery outlet, and we get them foods that last long, like tuna. Find things that they like, and then like right now, because there's also transitions where sometimes they lose their housing. Guess what? Now they got to start paying rent. Okay, how do we budget from there too? So it's like a slow, like for her, I did very, very colorful, pretty paper of budgeting, lots of shapes and colors, and she really responds well to stuff like that. So oftentimes it depends on your client and how self-sufficient they are as well. So are they high functioning? Some of them, just like taking them to Walmart, they got it. They know. Some of them you do have to take the extra step because some of them are teachable, and some of them really they know what to say. They've been surviving. They're homeless. They work the system, So you just kind of have to navigate your client, but really like going those steps further, it depends on the client. Oh, okay. But yeah, I would just say it really just depends on the client. What does their need look like? If that's case management, like for me, I got bill, I got productivity. Girl, I'm gonna take you to a food bank. Like I gotta go do that. It helps my job too, but those are things that you can sit down and like do case management.
Thank you for that, Adri. Jody, did you want to add on as well?
Well, I just have a question.
Okay.
If the sister is the payee and she doesn't make the time, can you text her? And also, is there another family member that might take up the time to be the payee for this person that is lower functioning or not functioning? The other question I have is, do you find different resources where they can get free food? Like, for example, my son-in-law and daughter, they have found that Salvation Army where they live gives free food on Tuesdays or Thursdays. Free the food bank, a church up where they live gives free food to people that are in need. So, can you find different resources, and are they allowed to go there and get it? Do they qualify wise, not otherwise, and do they have reasonable means to get it also, because if they're taking public transportation they may not be able to get it. So you got to think of everything. But I mean, is there another person that can help them? That's my question. If the sister's not making the time, who else can be that person?
That's an excellent point. Thank you for that, Jody, in terms of support as well. And thank you, Sydney, for the question, Edry, for sharing your perspective and your experience here, right? We can look at this at multiple angles. But I think, Jody, your last comment here is what are the options at play? What are the resources that we can access both right now, short term and long term, right? So we can help someone, obviously, talking about basic needs, Sydney, right? Maslow's hierarchy. We need to eat, right? Like that's number one, right? But then also we need to be able to sustain ourselves, and budgeting, that's long term. That's a very different SMART goal. And one will take longer than the other, but addressing like the essential needs is definitely vital there. This is good stuff. All right, let's wrap this up. We got one more. So we have our Joel or Joel's in the house. So here is Joel's scenario. Joel is having trouble with his roommate. Oh no. He does have a case manager from a community-based organization. However, he has not seen them for a while. He has discussed the issue with them in the past, but it's now way out of hand. Joel is starting to have problems sleeping because of his roommate's behavior. His father wants him out of the apartment. Joel wants to stay. He just wants his roommate to get better. How would you advocate for Joel, and whom would you involve? All right, so let's see Joel's. The Joel's in the house. Let's start off with Joel B. So Joel or Joel B. We have Arabella, Charles, and Murphy. Who's your spokesperson?
We didn't elect a spokesperson. However, can my peers help me out here? Are they still with us?
I hope so.
I did a lot of the talking. That's why I'm soliciting
I
their
love it.
assistance.
I love it. Hey, sharing the load. I like that. That's a friendly
But
like.
they may be indisposed. So
Okay.
this is the one where the father didn't want these two to live together.
Correct.
I believe that I suggested that if I were the peer support specialist, with the client's permission, I would prefer that if we could have a team meeting that possibly included the father, and I would want more information about what behaviors are keeping him up. Because it came up in our group, if the father is the responsible party for our client, then it would be important, and maybe we could collectively come up with a better living arrangement, because we don't know enough about the scenario to know if the roommate was becoming symptomatic, or what exactly he had going on. So the best approach I could come up with was, with the client's permission, a team meeting, so that we could collectively resolve his concerns.
Thank
With
you,
him
Murphy,
present, of course.
Thank you for that, Murphy, representing your team. How about you, the spokesperson for Joel A, Carla, Deanna, Jody, Kelvin?
We were very passionate about this one, so we were talking about it a lot. But basically, our main thing was boundaries. We were focusing more so on boundaries and communication. And the biggest thing was like, okay, let's have like a family discussion with who lives in the household. And instead of like, resulting into automatically just kicking the roommate out, since Joelle doesn't feel comfortable with that, then let's try to find a common ground all together. And if it's not working out clearly, then let's help the roommate find give them resources for housing or stuff like that. And the other thing was also to make sure that Joel's safety was priority as well, and make sure that nothing was going on in the home, and that he feels comfortable enough to talk to whoever he needs to. And then I feel like the last one was, it's good to also have another person who has an unbiased opinion in this conversation, so it's not jumping to picking sides right away, and understanding everybody that's sitting there. And the last one, I promise it's the last one, it was important for documentation, because if it's not documented, it didn't happen. So we want to make sure that everything's documented. So in case scenarios like this happen and you need to take legal action, then you have something to support you to back you up on that.
Deanna, if I had a mic, I'd drop it. But I think Renee, she's doing it right now. So mic drop. Well done. Thank you for that. And what I love about this is you started like, we were passionate about this. and that passion exuded out of you.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
and that's the beauty of this, right, Renee?
Yeah.
Okay. So on that note, thank you all. So we're gonna wrap up. This is where we're gonna wrap up role of advocacy. I know we have some questions. I want to honor time here a little bit because Renee will be up next. So please remember that your class evaluation can be done right as soon as the class is done at the earliest, right? So we're gonna take our second break. Right now it is 7:27. Let's be back at 7:37. Please do your practice of self-care, and then we'll continue with psych rehab with Renee when we come back. Gracias.